The Saints fall to the Cardinals in preseason game number 2 thanks to sloppy quarterback play from one backup QB. But a running back looks to fill in for Mark Ingram to start the regular season. Plus, problems are mounting on and off the field for Ed Ogeron's LSU Tigers. And Tulane looks forward to celebrating the Waves' unbeaten 1998 team. In preseason game number 2, we got a harsh reminder why keeping Drew Brees healthy is the single most important factor in Saints' success this season. I'm Doug Mouton. Welcome to 4th Down on 4. So it's time to vote. If you were making the call, how much would number 9 play in preseason game number 3? Not at all, a series or two, or an entire half. What would you do? Vote now on our mobile app or on our website, wwltv.com/vote. And we start with what to do while Mark Ingram is away.
Mark Ingram getting extra work this preseason.
I mean, I won't be playing the first few games, so, I mean, it makes sense.
The Pro Bowl running back, who carried it just 4 times all of last preseason, is already up to 14 in these first 2 games. The workload coming now, because Ingram will be serving an early season suspension.
I don't know what that's going to be like or how it's going to feel. I'm sure it's not going to feel good, but yeah, it's my first time ever being away from my team in any form or fashion since I've been playing sports.
We're deep. We have a number of healthy running backs that we're trying to evaluate, and we keep kind of just rotating who's up with the first group.
And when he's gotten his chance with the first group at training camp, Jonathan Williams has taken full advantage.
He's been doing a good job, the last couple weeks, and I think when he made those couple plays in the first preseason game, that gave him the confidence to keep going. So he's doing real good.
He's just a workhorse, and I'm happy for him. I'm happy to see the success he's had. He's had a lot of big runs. It's no surprise to me because I get to see him every day and see him how he works and all of that. But it's good to see him get that recognition outside of here.
He burst on the scene in that 4th quarter against the Jags and continued the momentum in the second preseason game versus the Cardinals.
I feel like I'm getting better each and every day. Every day I wake up, when I get up, I tell myself to make sure, act like this might be your last day. I didn't get to play last year, so that's a motivating factor. Every day I wake up.
Williams appears to be the front runner to take the carries Mark Ingram would have had in the first 4 games of the regular season. Sean Payton says the competition is still ongoing, but Williams is the back getting the most work behind Ingram and Alvin Kamara at practice. Williams, though, doesn't assume he's already secured the job.
I go out there when they tell me to go out there, and every rep I take, I try to go as hard as I can and take it like it's my last rep.
Williams will see more reps, and the third-year back will also be ready to handle Ingram's reps if called upon to do so. In Metairie, Ricardo Lacombe, 4th Down on 4.
Here are the 5 guys competing for the job. Edmonds is working at fullback right now, and I think Vereen and Scott are battling it out to back up Alvin Kamara. West and Williams are the true running backs, and I like Williams a lot to win the job. And here's why Alvin Kamara cannot take Mark Ingram's carries. By the end of last season, he was averaging 19 touches a game. He's already maxed out. That battle will continue to play out in preseason game number 3. Ricardo has the story now from game number 2.
6 Saints offensive possessions in the first half. 4 of those 6 possessions ended with Taysom Hill turning the ball over to the Cardinals.
I got to be better. It was a frustrating night. It's tough to win a football game when you have 4 turnovers. So I thought there was definitely some good things, but it's hard to look past having 4 turnovers.
The first came on an interception in New Orleans' first drive. A dump-off over the middle that went through Cam Meredith's hands and into Arizona linebacker Hassan Riddick's hands.
That's on me. Of course it is, but at the same time, you don't do that to your quarterback. You put it in a good place, you got to catch the ball. The rest of the game, I kind of was trying to forget about it and just going out there doing my job.
Things happen. That's the game of football, and it's one of those things you got to live with.
The first probably not his fault, but the second pick at the beginning of the second quarter was a deep ball intended for Ted Ginn Jr., but quarterback Bené Benrickery tapped the toes inbounds for the interception.
He put last year, so that's a motivating factor every day I wake up.
But Hill also put the ball on the ground, losing 2 fumbles to the Cards.
First one was kind of a fumbled snap, bad exchange there, and second one, their mesh was not good. Both things frustrating. Gotta be cleaned up.
But Hill did have one highlight in an otherwise terrible first half. He broke off the longest run of the game, a 43-yard scramble off a busted play. That drive ended with a Will Lutz field goal. Those flashes of athleticism will keep Hill in the hunt for the backup job. Hill will get another shot. Just a tough lesson to learn Friday night.
I think it was a tough night for him. You can't get stuck hold on to the ball and taking the sack fumbles like that. And I think he'll rebound and be better.
Peyton also said the wide receiver play has been sloppy these first 2 preseason games. He wants to see that cleaned up before preseason game number 3 next Saturday in LA against the Chargers. Reporting at the Superdome, Ricardo Lecomte, 4th Down on 4.
Now it's on to LA. The Saints will practice against the Chargers Wednesday and Thursday. Those joint practices proved to be extremely valuable last year. And remember, the Chargers finished last season 4th in the NFL in total offense. So this is a great test for that retooled Saints defense. And they were 5th in the NFL in team sacks. So it's a good test for the offensive line. Joint practices Wednesday and Thursday, then preseason game number 3, the one in which starters play a lot. Saturday night in Los Angeles at 7 p.m. That game is here on Channel 4. Our pregame show starts at 6. Ricardo Lecomte got some analysis today on where the Saints stand now.
All right, Rod Walker from The Advocate joins us, and we'll talk a little bit of Saints. 2 preseason games in the books. Give me one good thing and one bad thing that you've seen from this team.
I think the good thing is what we've seen at running back with Jonathan Williams. Coming into the preseason, one of the big concerns is who's going to replace Mark Ingram in those first 4 games, and when he's sitting out suspension. And I think Jonathan Williams has shown that he'll be able to help carry their load, and obviously we have Alvin Kamara, and we know what he could do. So I think that's like the really, really good thing. I think the one bad thing, I think, and maybe something that we don't have to worry about, is the backup quarterback position. I don't think we've really settled that yet, and we're, who we are two games into the preseason. Taysom Hill obviously struggled a little bit on Friday night against the Cardinals, so that was a problem. And Tom Savage has been, he's been decent, and he's a guy that's been in the league around. So I think right now he's probably won that position just by default. But I think you're still a little concerned about that if Breeze goes down. But if Breeze goes down, you're concerned anyway. So.
Yeah, exactly. And Breeze, of course, took all the snaps last year, and I think most fans want to see Breeze still under center for the entire season. Sean Payton talked about some of the issues from that second preseason game, and one of the issues was that wide receiver just getting the wrong splits, getting the wrong, just making mental mistakes overall. What would just be your overall assessment of that group in general through training camp?
I think through training camp, obviously Michael Thomas has been Michael Thomas. It's really remarkable if you watch him in practice and just how every single rep, he's just going full speed ahead, and so he's going to be the leader of that group. Obviously, I think Traquan Smith has really been impressive in camp, the rookie out of UCF. The first 2 weeks of camp, he really dominated. He was probably the star of camp, those first 2 weeks, and even in the preseason game, he's played really well. I think Ted Ginn, he's going to be solid. He's Ted. He's been around the league. He knows what to do. I think as far as some of the other guys, special teams are going to probably be their way onto the team. When you look at, you look at Brandon Tate, you look at Tommy Lee Lewis and those guys. So I think the receiving course, is really solid.
Let's go on the other side of the ball, and we'll go defensively. And Sean Payton said it was a better start for that defense out the gates versus what they did against Jacksonville. We look at training camp, and we talk about the linebacking position. We kind of are still trying to shuffle who's going to start at Will, who's going to be at Sam, who's going to be at Mike. But there's a lot of versatility there. What are your impressions of that position, and who do you like in each of those spots?
Well, those guys are so interchangeable. I think the addition of Mario Davis is really going to help this unit out. He's really just kind of flying around to the football, and I think, A.J. Klein, we talked to him today, and one of the things he talked about is just that versatility with these groups. And I just think, I don't know, it's like you can just put the names in a hat and pull them out, and I think you're solid whichever way it turns out. So I'm really pleased with the linebacking crew this year.
All right, so the Saints are going to be heading out west. They're going to be having 2 joint practices with the Chargers. That game Saturday night against Los Angeles. What do you want to see out of this team? And basically, what are you going to learn from the Saints team when they get through that week with the Chargers?
I think one thing they'll really get a chance to look at, and something they talked about today as well, is this. The offensive line looked really good to me. Those 5 guys are back and all looking really good. This week they'll go up against a really good Chargers defense with Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa on defensive end. So I think that's something that you'll really look at. And the Chargers throw the ball really well, and this will give these defensive backs another solid test, and I think those are the 2 big things that you're looking for this week.
It's good to see another team that the Saints are going to have to face instead of going, of course, against each other in camp. Rod, good stuff as always. Thank you very much.
Coming up, another Tiger is suspended from the team after a domestic violence charge, after LSU lost 4 other players as well. And how will those players missing affect Ed Orgeron's team in Week 1? We'll bring in Glenn Guilbeau to discuss. And later, it's been 20 years since Sean King and the Green Wave completed a perfect season. It was a turbulent week at LSU. 2 quarterbacks transferred and another high-profile suspension. Friday, Baton Rouge police arrested junior wide receiver Drake Davis. He's accused of punching and grabbing his girlfriend by the throat on 4 separate occasions. When asked about Drake Davis, Ed Orgeron offered little.
Drake Davis is suspended indefinitely. Drake Davis is a legal matter, and I won't make any other comments.
An attorney representing Davis said the victim in the case retracted her statement and said the allegations are not true. East Baton Rouge District Attorney Hiller Moore told the Advocate it's not unusual for people who have been abused to change their story. He said the investigation is ongoing. The police report says in one of the incidents, Davis hit his ex-girlfriend hard enough to break one of her ribs. Davis is off the team indefinitely. So is starting guard Ed Ingram. Orgeron has not said why and was asked about that this weekend.
That's a legal matter, and I'm not going to make any comment on it.
And a third player is in legal trouble, too. Police in Georgia arrested sophomore linebacker Tyler Taylor back in May. He's accused of being the getaway driver in a pawn shop burglary. His attorney told the Advocate he would plead not guilty. And cornerback Christian Fulton's NCAA suspension will stand. He admitted to tampering with a drug test and appealed his 2-year suspension. But the NCAA denied that appeal. Orgeron was asked about how those high-profile incidents had affected his team.
Now, I think the leadership on this team has been fantastic. We'll block out the noise. There'll be stuff during the season that we're going to have to handle. I think the maturity of this football team has showed that we blocked out the noise, and we move on, we take the next step. We'll deal with the matter at hand, and we move on.
And if the arrests and suspensions weren't enough, this week 2 quarterbacks transferred. Justin McMillan and former St. James Wildcat Lowell Narcisse both left LSU. The quarterback battle is down to Ohio State transfer Joe Burrow and sophomore Miles Brennan. They were the top 2 before the transfers. It leaves LSU with little depth at quarterback, and Orgeron said he's not ready to name a starter yet.
Not yet. Not yet. We'll talk about it as a staff. I think there are some things that we need to see this week, and we'll make that decision.
And the opener against Miami is now 2 weeks from tonight. 8th-ranked Miami. Ricardo LeCompte caught up with one of the best who covers the Tigers to talk about the on-the-field questions.
All right, let's talk a little Tigers. We'll bring in Glenn Guilbeau, who writes for the USA Today Network. And Glenn, obviously the big storyline this week was the quarterbacks transfer out. Lowell Narcisse and Justin McMillan have left the program now. So pretty much, I guess we have a good grasp of what the quarterback battle is going to be there in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, I think the 2 that left know what the battle is too. That's probably why they left. But yeah, it's Joe Burrow versus Miles Brennan, and we kind of knew that all the time. I think everybody thought LSU would lose one quarterback, but maybe not both of them on the same day. So that's kind of tough if they get somebody hurt. But the good thing is it pairs it down, and all the reps will now go to Burrow and Brennan if they haven't been already.
Have you gotten a gauge of who's taking the forefront in that race?
Well, I mean, you can't watch practice, the part of practice that matters. And Orgeron actually is more candid and honest than most coaches when he talks, but he hasn't really said one's ahead of the other. But I got to say, I mean, like everybody else, it's a solid bet that it's going to be Burrow, because he's just played more and he's had more success, and he almost won the job at Ohio State. and he's new. You know, I think that's important. And Brennan was pretty good last year, but he's still got a ways to go. He's still got to put on more weight. So I think you're going to see Burrow as the starter, but it could change as the season goes on.
Let's stay on the offensive side, and two freshman receivers have been the rave of camp so far in Terrace Marshall and Rummel's Jamar Chase.
Right.
It looks like those two guys may be contributing as the season gets underway.
Oh, I don't think there's any question. It's going to be Terrace Marshall, Jamar Chase, and Jonathan Giles are going to be your top three receivers. And Jamar Chase, Coach Orgeron has said over and over again, he's playing like he's a veteran. He's a true freshman who didn't go through spring, but he's been consistent. And Terrace Marshall is starting to play better. He was hurt during the spring, but I think you're going to see a lot of Jamar Chase.
We'll go on the defensive side of the ball, and one of the issues that I know LSU was trying to address was that depth at the defensive back, at the cornerback position. The Christian Fulton decision, his suspension, 2-year suspension, will still continue on. So I think, does that still leave a little bit of depth issues, behind Greedy Williams there at corner?
I think they're strong there. I mean, Kerry Vincent looks like he's going to be the starter on the other side opposite of Greedy. And they've got plenty of guys that are pretty talented there behind him. Terrence Alexander's a transfer from Stanford. He's been playing some nickel. So, Fulton's a great player. But if there's a position where you're going to lose a guy like that, I think cornerback's probably the best one, because I think they're strong there. I really do. Real quick,
where's one area as we go into this season opener against Miami would you be concerned about for LSU?
The offense has a lot of concerns. I mean, right tackle has been a problem. They lost their right guard, Ed Ingram. That's probably the biggest loss of the preseason. You know, they lost a linebacker too, Tyler Taylor, and Jamal Pettigrew is a big loss too. He was their best blocking tight end, but I think Ed Ingram is the biggest loss. There's just so many question marks on offense in addition to the quarterback. You know, who's the running back? A lot of youth on the offensive line. So if they can get some of those questions answered after the defense carries them early in the season, they have a chance for a decent season.
Good thing that defense is pretty solid, so it does kind of carry him before they try to figure out all those questions on offense. Glenn, appreciate all your insight on LSU. Of course, the Tigers, Labor Day weekend, will be in Dallas, opening up against the Miami Hurricanes.
Still ahead, Tulane is gearing up for the 20th anniversary of the Green Wave's unbeaten 1998 team. We'll look back on that magical season when we come back. Tulane kicks off its 125th season of college football a week from Thursday. They open at home Thursday, August 30th against Wake Forest. There is huge optimism uptown in year 3 of the Willie Fritz era, and much of that optimism surrounds their senior quarterback, Jonathan Banks, who Fritz believes is good enough to play on Sunday. They'll also be celebrating the 20th anniversary of one of the most magical seasons in Tulane history. Back in 1998, the Wave ran unbeaten, 12-0, and finished the year ranked 7th in the country. Offensive coordinator Rich Rodriguez was way ahead of the game. Tulane ran a fast-paced spread attack. It was new to college football, and defenses could not adjust. Sean King led the nation in passing efficiency as the Wave scored more than 40 points a game 9 times in a magical season running Rodriguez's innovative offense.
He had a lot to prove, and he thought we were his vehicle to introduce college football to the spread zone read offense that you see now.
We were doing some things offensively that were on the cutting edge. Nobody had really married the whole game, a fast-paced, no-huddle offense. We're really up tempo. Nobody was really doing that. So we had that surprise effect. Defenses still had not caught up with it. It was several years before they caught up with it.
I mean, the 1998 Tulane team with Tommy Bowden as the head coach and Rich Rodriguez as the offensive coordinator brought the spread, zone read, up-tempo, hurry-up offense to college football. You know, there was no one else that was running that system at that time.
Sean King is now an assistant coach at South Florida. We'll remember that unbelievable season with an eye on the Green Wave special, the perfect season. It airs the day before Green Wave opener. That's Wednesday, August 29th. We're still working on it. We're back with more 4th Down on 4 in a minute. The results of our poll question are very interesting. The majority of Saints fans, 58%, would like to see Drew Brees play just a series or two. That was my vote, too. And only 15% of people want to see him play the whole first half, which is probably what he will do. That's smart voting. Hold your breath and hope he stays upright is the advice. For producer Danny Rockwell, photographer Adam Ney, Ricardo LeComp, and Andrew Doak, I'm Doug Mouton. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on 4th Down on 4.